Hey, everybody, welcome back to the podcast. You're listening to the longest running superhero role playing game on Earth. I'm your host, the GM, and today we're talking about the Justice League. But before we get into that, smash like, make sure you're subscribed, and leave us a comment. We've got an awesome community here, and it's all thanks to you guys. So thank you so much for being here. With all that said, let's dive in. The prologue to this one begins at the Justice League Embassy in London, where the Justice League of Europe watches a broadcast from the small Austrian resort town of Meerhofen. The reporter is describing strange goings on in the town when suddenly she goes crazy and attacks her cameraman. Moments later, the camera goes dead, which brings us to the main plot. When the Justice League of Europe arrives in the town of Meerhofen in the Austrian Alps, they find that the whole town is under quarantine, cordoned off by Austrian troops. General Weinbrot tells the JLE that the townsfolk have apparently gone mad and are rioting in the streets. He refuses to let the JLE enter the town, afraid that they may also contract the madness. So the heroes sneak into town and find a scene of bedlam. Townsfolk dance and caper in the street wearing outlandish costumes. Buildings and fountains are covered in graffiti. Some townsfolk wander aimlessly or lie curled on their sides, apparently catatonic. In the southern part of town, the Justice League of Europe finds a possible source of the madness in the form of meteorites that have fallen on the town. All efforts to study the meteorites are prevented, however, by the townsfolk, who have a catastrophic irrational attraction to these stones and will fight to defend them. So the Justice League is forced to fight these people. Once they're done overcoming them, the heroes are able to collect samples of the meteorites, finding traces of a strange infectious microbe. Before they can carry out more than a cursory study, though, they're called away to Paris, which has apparently also fallen victim to the madness plague. At the same time, the JLE learns that the conglomerate has been called in to keep rioters from damaging Stag Industries' Montbleu nuclear power plant near Paris. Also, a distraught astronomer begs the heroes to come to his observatory. He has important news to share. In Paris, the Leaguers find the situation far worse than that in Meerhofen. The madness is more widespread, and the French army has not yet been able to establish any sort of order. People are fleeing the city. Loonies are running wild in the streets. Parts of the city are in flames, and there is panic everywhere. The heroes fight throughout the night to bring the situation under control. After helping to restore order in Paris, the Leaguers learned that members of the conglomerate, having apparently succumbed to the madness, have barricaded themselves inside the nuclear power plant and were refusing to let anyone enter. The plant is on the verge of meltdown. Rushing to the plant, the heroes subdue the conglomerate before they can save the plant. And after defeating the deranged heroes, the Justice League of Europe acts in the nick of time and they prevent the meltdown. Which brings us to the epilogue. At the observatory, the heroes learn that the meteorites that have struck so far are merely forerunners of a larger swarm due to arrive within 24 hours. They also learn that the astronomers have picked up some unusual radio transmissions coming from the meteor swarm and aimed at Meerhofen and Paris. One astronomer says that his superiors in the European Space Agency have authorized him to let the Justice League of Europe use a European space shuttle to go after the meteor swarm. However, it will take several hours to fuel and prepare the shuttle. So the heroes go to French Guiana in South America, the site of the ESA's launch facilities. They learn that an emergency session of the United Nations General Assembly has been called to discuss how to deal with the meteor swarm. Moments later, the news broadcast is interrupted by Libra making demands. And this is a good place to stop for now. Like we said in yesterday's video, this was part of a module for DC Heroes called World in the Balance, written by Michael Moe and Beverly Hale, published by Mayfair Games. Though I could totally see how some people would think that the two stories are unrelated, as the first part dealt with the Justice League International team, and part two dealt with the Justice League Europe team. DC Heroes liked doing that sort of thing since multiple modules were written that way. I own another module where you sort of play half of it as Superman and then the other half of it as Wonder Woman. It was really weird too because um it was like a trifold, I think is what they call it, where sort of like you would open it up and it became like two books basically. So the part on your left was like the Superman part and the part on your right was like the Wonder Woman part. It was very strange. I think they also had one where you'd play the different parts of the module as the different Green Lanterns, but I'm not 100% sure about that one because honestly, I never played the modules much. One reason I tend to not play the actual modules is while the DC Heroes RPG is my favorite RPG due to its game mechanics, I actually felt like a lot of the stories that Mayfair came up with were kind of dull. I also hate it when a module really pushes the idea that you have to go from chapter 1 to chapter 2 to chapter 3. And if the heroes do something that is genuinely creative, then it's supposedly the job of the game master to quote unquote get them back on track. And I hate that because if you're on a track, that's railroading, right? And if I wanted to experience fiction where I had no say in it, then I'd watch movies or TV or something. The core concept of a tabletop role playing game, in my humble opinion, is choice and free will. If you take those things away, I don't think it's even an RPG anymore. I've got a friend who I won't mention by name, but when he runs games, he was always a slave to continuity. He would tell us that he was going to run a story from a certain comic book, and the first thing he would do is hand us that actual comic book as if it were a script. And as soon as we had a hero do something that that hero did not do in the comic, he would say we were out of character. And he'd tell us to try something else. And what he really meant was do what he did or say what he said, you know? So anytime we let him run a game, it really felt more like we were putting on a play for him. It was very strange. When I run a module, I just read the whole thing ahead of time, and then I use that general idea as the basis for the game. Then, as we play, I let my players steer the direction the adventure moves in. If they do what the module wanted them to do, great. If they don't do what the module wanted them to do, great. Either way, I then come up with whatever seems like the next logical thing that would happen as a reaction to whatever they contributed. So that's what we did with this one, and we had a pretty good time playing this one. We hope, as always, that you had a good time listening to it. If so, we'd love it if you smashed like, make sure you're subscribed, and left us a comment. And from everyone here at the longest running superhero role playing game on earth, we hope you have a good one, and we'll see you in the next adventure. Bye.